So, happy Thoughtful Thursday. Of course, I am borrowing that from the creator of the Thoughtful Journey Tarot, who always pulls cards on Thursdays and has the calling it the hashtag Thoughtful Thursday. But of course, this is another installment of my series Therapy and Tarot. So, welcome. If you're just joining me and you're new for the first time, of course, as I said, my name is Alana. I am a neurodivergent Hayoka empath. I am a social worker in Canada, and I'm a mental health advocate. And so that is the premise for why I started this channel, why I started this series. And, you know, of course, being a mental health advocate, because of the fact that, well, because I chose my profession to be a social worker, because I've had my own struggles as a neurodivergent, with my own mental health, wellness, also. I've worked with clients in various capacities over the course of my career. I burnt myself out from it, and this is my way of sort of pivoting that. So, and then trying to get back to me, of course, and being on this healing path of my journey, if you will. And wanting to share that with you. So of course, if you're, I will always say and lead with, with professional help. If you are someone who is struggling with mental illness, with addiction, or anything that is goes beyond the scope of concern for you, where things are impeding your life. I will always advocate and recommend, to seeking professional help. First and foremost, check with your doctor. You got it. So with all that being said, the topic that I wanted to discuss and... Sorry, give me 1 second. The topic that I wanted to talk about and discuss today, which is kind of sort of playing off last week's topic and, the running themes of the topics that I've had going on. Hi, welcome. I'm not sure how to translate that, but okay. Anyhow, if you're just joining me, thank you for being here. So one of the topic, as I was saying, that I've sort of been leaning on and talking about is the idea of low vibrational, our thoughts and our thoughts and our behaviors that keep us stuck in low vibrational frequencies, and lower frequencies and low vibrational ways of life. So the idea of survival mode. So talking about that, and and the effects that survival mode can have, not only on us as individuals, but also how that can keep us collectively stuck in a karmic loop when we don't address a lot of these things. So so to start off, when someone is locked into survival mode, what essentially does that mean? So it's that idea, and I've talked about this previously on my channel, but the idea of, the trauma responses that we could adhere to. So, when someone is stuck in survival mode, you're often stuck into, hi, welcome, Jim. Thank you for being here. And their nervous system. So the idea of their nervous system being stuck in survival mode, right? And what are the trauma responses that can be? So for me, for example, my trauma response throughout my life, I realized, had been people pleasing. And I know that for a lot of people, especially empaths and people who are sensitive, right, that can, depending on how you grew up. But there are also various other survival modes. So it's not just, and the understanding of people pleasing, that really falls under the umbrella of fawning. So you have fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So I identified what mine was. Hi. Thank you for liking, and I hope that you're doing well today, and that we can explore this topic together. So when it comes to these various survival modes, these trauma responses that we end up finding ourselves in, which ends up leading how we navigate, right? How we navigate life. So often, a lot of what we then, our thoughts, our decisions, end up following suit. So we fall into the trap of fear-based decision making. So the idea of scarcity, mindset, mistrust, and control. So for me, there was, even with my, like I said, my trauma response being fawning, and how that played a role in my life, in the decisions that I made. It basically, it was like I wasn't even considering myself in everything that I was doing. But again, the decision making, the scarcity mindset, and I'll talk about even in relation to how I identify this even in my own life, but mistrust and control. So the idea of there's that level of having to be always independent because you are mistrusting that anybody's going to be there for you, or the idea of needing to be in control of everything and everyone around you. Now, remembering that, logically speaking, we're only in control of ourselves, not anybody else, right? And not circumstances either, for the most part, because there are so many different variables when it comes to, right, living life. We're not on this planet by ourselves. We're living in and amongst so many people, right? So and then the idea of scarcity, well, there's not enough to go around, and so we have to be so in control of everything that sometimes how that plays out. So for example, for me, and especially those who may have experienced childhood trauma, you might find yourself, when mental illness starts to play a factor, right? We have PTSD, things like that come in, and that can add to a lot of these fear-based decision making. So for me, my control showed up as OCD, right? Obsessive control. obsessive compulsive disorder. That's what what I meant to say, trying to say. You know, and then, you know, having to manage that. So, you know, this is something for me. I have been, hi, thank you. I have found myself having to navigate, you know, and had to seek professional aid in order to manage my OCD. Well, that would be nice if you would. I would appreciate that. And I hope that you, for your own benefit as well. So, you know, thank you for joining. So the other aspect that can often show up is the idea of hypervigilance. And what exactly, well, thank you, Natasha. Thank you for subbing. And I hope that, you know, you'll enjoy the videos that I do have up on my channel, and, you know, be willing to join when I do more live streams. So thank you. So there's the idea of hypervigilance. So the idea of seeing threats everywhere, even when there are no threats that are actually existing, right? And this can, as I was saying just now, is that the idea of OCD. So, you know, the idea and the concept of OCD, for those that have suffered, or maybe still struggling, is that there are, and of course, OCD can show in a variety of ways for different people, right? There's no one specific way that OCD shows up in anyone's life, right? And the trauma behind it that may trigger that, and where that may, what the person might end up sort of obsessing on in and around the OCD, will vary from person to person, right? But you know, a lot of the time that comes up as a result of trauma, right? And so for me, I would say that my OCD tendencies, I mean, I would say that I've probably had hints of it throughout my life, but it became more surface level, more predominant in, you know, as I got older. And for me, it was around needing to be in control of my thoughts, in the sense of, well, it was less control over my thoughts, but because I couldn't control my thoughts, right, and lack of sleep and things like that, I found myself having lapse in memory when it came to everyday things like cleaning or you know, taking a shower or whatever the case may be. And so with that, it was you know, having to count a certain amount of times. That was the idea of the control. Why? Because if I didn't do it, I would forget. There was a possibility of forgetting something. And when you're neurodivergent and your mind bounces from thing to thing, and, you know, forgetting stuff, you know, becomes a little bit more common, and there's trauma around that, right? The feedback you're getting from other people, or you're unreliable, or you're this, or you're that, and then you're stuck, and you have your survival mode is people pleasing, right? Fawn. That was how I felt the need to compensate, right? My nervous system felt the need to compensate. Whether or not in my logical brain did I know whether or not that was, that was a necessary thing? But it was something that it became part of my nervous system, and I could not feel calm unless I engaged with those things. So, that can be something too that a lot of people sort of struggle with. Then there's also the idea of, when we're stuck in survival mode, in any one of these, of, like I said, the trauma responses, then there's the reactivity that happens instead of conscious response. So when you are interacting with other people, and communicating with other people, we all have, different minds, we all have different experiences, we all have different thought processes. And so, if someone says something that rubs us the wrong way, how we respond versus react, right? In survival mode, you're more likely to react because the way that you are triggered, your feelings are triggered, however that may be, and you're triggered into your stuck trauma response. So again, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right? There are some people who just can't answer. They shut down. They can't communicate. There are other people that will immediately, probably rip your head off, right? There are others that just, they're out of there. They avoid you. They become the avoidant. And then there are those that will want to please, right? Because they want to make you happy, because making you happy then means that they can be at peace. So, so there's that. And then there's also the idea of energy looping in the lower chakras of the root, the sacral, around things like safety, survival, and basic needs, right? And of course, the way that, society is right now, the unfair balance in society's resources, financial resources, with the economy, with all that's going on, right? Financial crisis, all of those things now has sent many people into trauma response. And a lot of them now, you have that, crime rates are going up, right? All these various things that, people are living on the street, they're without homes, right? So now that's basically everything that I was talking about just now is how the idea of when you're stuck in your survival mode and you're stuck in your nervous system is stuck, in any of these trauma responses, that would be, the individual person, right? So for me, my trauma response led to my demise, my burnout. And I just spent a lot of time healing from that. That included, reaching out to my doctor. That included medication. That included therapy, right? And all the things that, in and around that encompassed all of that healing work that I committed to piecing myself essentially back together, right? But now, so, that idea of seeing what trauma response looks like from an individual basis. Hi, Marie. Hi, welcome. Thank you for being here, hun. Nice to see you again. I hope that you've had a great week. So we're just, right now we're talking about, the idea of how we can get stuck in the lower frequencies of survival mode, and how that the impact that can have when we don't heal can keep us stuck in the karmic loop. So thank you, Marie. So as I was just, and of course, I'm sure Marie, you'll catch the playback, but talking about what survival mode looks like, and that karmic loop looks like from an individual standpoint, right? But now the understanding how the individual has these sort of individual impact has on the collective as a whole, right? So we understand the idea of the butterfly effect, right? And the rippling effect that could have. So when large numbers of people operate from this state, it creates a collective resonance. It creates this sort of field, of vibrational field, that keeps humanity tethered to the survival frequencies. So what exactly does that look like? Well, for someone who is trying to heal, right? When those around them are not engaging in a healing process, right? On some degree, you're now forced to act in modes of survival, right? As a defense mechanism, right? In order to protect yourself. But ideally, that's not how we want to be living, right? So we have, thinking more specifically about fear. Fear spreads like static collectively. Anxiety, panic, or insecurity amplifies when enough people are vibrating at that level of that frequency, right? So thinking of yes, right? Exactly. That's exactly right. And there are a lot of jobs that are like that. Well, even in today's society, right? It's that hustle culture that keeps us stuck as well, right? We've that idea that money is the thing that makes us the happiest, or that will make us the happiest. So we are forced into hustle culture in order to survive, right? So the pressures of all of that can place on a person's nervous system, not even to mention how the environment that they grew up in, right? All of these things sort of add on and tack on to that and keep us stuck in the lower densities of energies, right? So this leads into the idea of scarcity programming deepens, right? It shows up in ways of things like hoarding, like competition. Not to say that there aren't healthy modes of competition when it comes to sports and things like that, but there is a fine line to what healthy is and what toxic competition looks like, right? That sort of, I spoke about that last week in the sense of crabs in a barrel, right? And so you find yourselves engaging in competition with others, or engaging in manipulative practices in order to get ahead. Yes, exactly. Yes, for sure. Hi, Sukuna. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Welcome. Oh yeah, there we go. Hold on a second. Where are the rest of the notes? So yeah, the idea. So again, the idea of manipulation, of others to get what is needed and get your wants met in order to get ahead. I'm in Toronto. Where are you from? So it reinforces the illusion that there isn't enough for everyone to go around, right? So that whole, again, that goes back to the hustle culture, money, the imbalance of the world's finances being held by the very few. It really drives in that illusion that there isn't enough when there is. Well, welcome from all the way from Iran. Thank you for being here. And then, right, then the other aspect of that is that how does that end up looking like, especially from, the collective, is that it authority control strengthens the survival consciousness, makes people easier to control. Again, the imbalance of the world's finances, right? The majority of the world's money is held by the very few, right? It's like dangling a little piece of cheese and expecting everyone to run after it, right? Like, makes people easier to control through fear-based systems, economics, politics, media, social media, and then impacts innovation. It impacts higher vision in the sense that it shrinks the creative, intuitive, and compassionate centers of the brain / body, right? The heart and throat and third eye, all of the higher chakras, if you will. Hi, welcome. And so what ends up happening is they stay unactivated. Those, right? Because we're operating on the lower chakras, survival mode, right? Now, what that then creates is a feedback loop. Individuals in survival mode make fear-based choices. These choices ripple out, reinforcing the fear-based systems. The collective then becomes saturated with fear, scarcity, and control. That fear then loops back and keeps us all stuck in survival mode one way or another. That's why collective healing, individual healing, and collective healing are equally important. I'm glad that you agree, Marie. Yes, absolutely. it's when one person shifts out of survival mode, they begin to anchor higher frequencies like trust, creativity, love, abundance, and that has a rippling effect too. So the idea, if you want to save the world, start by saving yourself. The actions of those stuck in survival mode, fear, scarcity, reactivity, keep feeding the lower frequencies. Excuse me. Of the collective, until individuals start self-regulating, healing, and expanding, the whole collective ends up remaining trapped in survival loops, in karmic survival loops. So something to really think about when, we are, interacting with others, we are looking to do healing work. Yes, creativity can definitely heal. And yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a starting point as well. But I feel like there's so much more to that, but that's definitely one step of the journey. And I feel like, depending on what your struggles are, as an individual, that's going to vary, even though technically we are all human, right? We're all human beings. We're all living together collectively on this planet, but also to be mindful that we all are unique in our own right. We all have our own unique journeys. And so whatever healing practices may work for one does not necessarily mean it's going to work for others. So it's all about having discernment. Thank you very, very much, Jackson. I really appreciate you saying that. Yeah, but also, realizing that not everything that, like I said, we're all individuals and we all have our individual journeys. So, you know, what may work for one person may not necessarily work for another. And yes, even if we have similarities in our journeys and things that we can relate to one another, still does not mean that our experiences are going to be the same and that each healing practice is going to work for everyone. So it takes a lot of trial and error. Remembering that, no one is perfect. We're all perfectly imperfect human beings. And, and that's probably, the best design out there, because it teaches us how to interact, how to give and take, how to compromise even. Thank you very much. Oh, you're in Canada too? Awesome. I am so glad. Welcome to my live stream. So yes, I'm in Canada as well, in Toronto. So it's nice to have the company, someone from home. So thank you for being here. So yeah, so that was the topic that I wanted to talk to today. But of course, with it being therapy and tarot, I also love to, be able to pull some cards as well. Okay, very, very nice. Very nice. Well, I'm happy to hear that we are technically neighbors. So yeah, so welcome. So of course, I'm gonna pull from, because I've been really enjoying this deck. This is the Tender Reminders, um, 50 Healing Affirmation cards, and by Jacqueline or Gore Chukwu Iyama. I'm probably butchering that. I am very, very sorry. But yeah, I have been loving this deck, so I'm gonna pull some cards from here, and let's see what comes up for the collective today. Of course, my goal for myself, for the channel, for all of you, yes, exactly. I'm glad that you like the binaural beats that I have playing in the background. That's awesome. Yes. Yeah, and I'm sorry to hear that, Jackson. I burnt myself out of my field, so I've had to pivot, and been, going through my own healing process along my journey. So good luck to you, and I hope that everything works out. But yeah, so let me just pull some cards from this deck. What do we have for the collective today? What do we need to be mindful of? Some food for thought. Okay. Okay, so the one card that came flying out is institutional. All right, so the question on the card: how has experiencing scarcity impacted my perception of what I deserve? And based on everything that we have been talking about, I feel like that is like the perfect question. So, something to reflect on, for all of us to reflect on, right? All right, and a tender reminder on the back of the card. So here's the card, the question, and then on the back we have a tender reminder. And the tender reminder says, when we dismantle institutions that let white people hoard power and resources, I would even say rich people, privileged, who hoard power and resources, we create more room for us to experience and expect abundance. So isn't that true for all of us? Right? I'm assuming you mean very appropriate, but it's kind of very apropos. I never heard of that term, but that actually sounds pretty cool. So I'm going to go with that. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, so, so that's something to keep in mind. Now, I'm going to pull a tarot card to go along with that. Let's see. Now, I'm actually using it's the Lucid Dreams Beginner's Tarot by Saint Soleil. This is the third edition that I have. It comes with a pretty decent guidebook. And what I really love about this is the fact that it actually has room on one side for your own notes. And then, yeah. So, and I'm going to pull a card and then, well, okay, you know what? Okay, so these are what the backs look like of this deck. Here are the fronts, and now I'm going to pull a card. Yeah. So, let's see, what do we have today? Messages. And in honor of Thoughtful Thursday, I will be pulling an oracle card to close from the Thoughtful Journey Oracle deck. Also, in honor of the creator of that deck, who has inspired the Thoughtful Thursdays. So, and the deck that I'm talking about, of course, if you haven't seen my interview or walkthrough of that deck and you're interested in seeing what that deck looks like, you know, by all means, check out the videos on my channel. Also, I do have a giveaway pending as well for 3 lucky subscribers to win a copy of the Thoughtful Journey Oracle, that would be something that will be unlocked when I hit 333 subscribers. So if you are interested in that deck and would like to possibly win a copy, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you'll always be in the know when I post my next video. Or live. Or semi-live. Okay. So. Alright. What do we have? Let's see what comes out. Yes. So of course the card that came flying out of this deck, again, is, I feel, is very fitting. So the card that came flying out is Temperance. And of course, the idea of temperance, so this one has the beautiful, it's beautiful with the gold and everything. You can see that our lady here on the card has the 2 cups, and the alchemy sort of flowing in between the 2 cups. So this card, and of course it has keywords on here, and the keywords are balance, harmony, healing, patience, self-control, moderation, purpose, peace, calm, tranquility, serenity. So again, how fitting is that to go with the tender reminder about scarcity, about hoarding finances, about hoarding power even. So, and as we are coming into we are coming into on the 21st, so about 3 days from now, we are coming into a solar eclipse, a new moon in Virgo, happening at the start of Libra season. And if you know and understand astrology and you understand the different signs, you know, well, Virgo, of course, is that's my sign. That's the maiden of the zodiac. You know, sort of stands for Mother Earth and giving and grounding and love and blah, 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 right? But then we also have, like I said, Libra, which is represented by the scales. So the scales sort of going back to the idea of balance, right? Healing and balance. The idea of self-regulation, self-control, Well, yeah, right. And that's, well, because Scorpio is the sign of the scorpion. So, right, you have a stinger. You have a stinger. And I know scorpions. They have stingers. And like, seriously. Okay, because my mom's a Scorpio. Okay, so I know. But I've known many Scorpios in my life, and they kind of have the same sort of. Anyway. Yeah, so that's temperance. And oh, Marie, you're Scorpio too? Oh wow, so it's a lot of Scorpios in the house. Ooh, the stairs, the stairs. Anyways, yes. So you right? And of course you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding too with depending on what your astrological sign is, right? Depending on what what your life journey may have brought forth to you, a lot of the time Scorpios, I was about to say scorpions, but I meant the Scorpios of the zodiac, have a tendency to fall in, not that anybody is likely to be in one category over another, but the idea that Scorpios, when it comes to trauma responses, you're more likely to fall into the trap of fight because of that that energy, that passion. That Scorpion has that stinger, so they right, they're in that mode of warrior protection, right, attack first. So exactly. So and that's a very, and Mars sort of standing for the sort of the masculine aspect of energy, right? So that's that protector, that fighter, that warrior, right? And that's Scorpio. That's also, I think, Sagittarius too, but yeah. So yeah. So with that, right, we have temperance on top of how has experiencing scarcity impacted my perception of what I deserve. And then the tender reminder again is when we dismantle institutions that let people hoard power and resources, we create more room for us to experience and expect abundance all around. Yeah. Yep. It does make sense. It does make sense. And I know a lot of people who are like that. Anxiety, that's the thing. Anxiety, fear, all of those things are what can throw us into these karmic loops of trauma response, right? Of the lower vibrations of survival mode. And I also want to say it's not about eliminating completely survival mode, because survival mode is still something that is important. We all have to survive, right? So, but it's how, again, it's finding that balance. So it's the idea of where your shadow meets your light, right? And we are facing our shadows head on, bringing them into conscious clarity, into the light, so that we can transmute and elevate our frequencies and our vibrations. Well, of course, and that's good that you have that sense of awareness that you are willing to take accountability for your actions, um, and yeah, and have that sort of that motivation to change what isn't working, right? Because essentially we're all human and no one is perfect. So are we going to mess up sometimes? Yes. But the beauty of it is that we have the choice to be loving, to take accountability, to recognize our mistakes, and make a conscious effort to change it. Right? We live, we listen, we learn. So, all right. So I'm going to pick out, one last card here from the Thoughtful Journey Oracle deck. And then I'm going to read the passage in the card from the book. And then close it out from there. Yes. Yes. But sometimes that, but also being mindful, Marie, that sometimes that can also work against you as well, because it means you're hanging on to past hurts and pain and trauma, and those can fuel the tendency to want to fight or attack, and that may not be conscious. Sometimes those are actions and thoughts that are etched within self, right, in our nervous system. So sometimes it's the way you respond isn't always going to be a conscious thing, right? That's the whole idea of the reactivity as opposed to responding. Taking the time to reflect before actual response. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And it's also forgetting too that we are, yeah, but that's the old programming mindset as well, right? I know. I have those same things come up for me too. Yes. But I think it can be hard for us all to some degree, right? I don't think it doesn't necessarily, because remember, technically, we all have the various signs, right? We have our top three, your sun, your moon, which your moon, which is what governs your emotions, and then you have your rising sign, the way others see you versus what your actual sign is. But there is also to be mindful that when you look up your birth chart, you're going to have various signs that govern different houses. So how you respond to certain situations, how you're likely to respond, I should say, in certain situations, all depends on what sign is governing in which house. So that's a whole nother complicated thing. If you're not familiar with astrology, that right? About healing. Well, I think it's a little, when it comes to our emotions, Jackson, I think it's a little bit more complex than just that. Right? And sometimes it may heal, but if we keep picking at the scab, or someone else keeps picking at the scab, gnawing it open, well, then that wound isn't really healed, is it? Yeah. Well, I'm my moon sign is Gemini, so I go flippy floppy with my emotions. They, I could be happy now and then suddenly see something that will make me cry, and then all of a sudden, just like that, as quickly as I'm maybe, I could start laughing. So I'm a little bit of a confused bunch there, where my moon sign is concerned. So yeah. Well, I mean, it depends, right? Like, I mean, sometimes you're never going to get that story. That's something that you may want and desire, but that doesn't mean that's what you're going to actually get, right? So you having to be okay with that to some degree. All right. What do we have for the collective today? This deck. Time. Okay. All right. Takeaway message for the collective this evening. What do we have? Whoa. Okay. So the card that came flying out is 37. Listen. So I really well, that's good. I'm glad. The card that I'm glad, Jackson, and you're welcome. So this card, listen. So even if you remember what I say, and also what is my hashtag and my theme for my channel, is live, listen, and learn. Right? Listen not only to ourselves and our emotions, but also be willing to openly listen to others. Well, yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. And you're right. We all do we all shine brighter when we shine together. Remember that. It isn't just about one person shining or outshining another, right? The brighter that we shine as an individual, and we share that shine and that love outwards, we all get to shine together. One big happy ball of energy, right? Because remember, we all come from love. We all go back to love. We all are love. So listen. So I'm going to read the what's in the book. And of course, we can see, the musical notes here, right? The music that we all make together. Well, I love you too, Jackson. Thank you for being here. Okay, so 37. Let me just read that here. So 37, listen. The ability to listen is a crucial part of growth and a meaningful way to expand our souls. Listen to the voice that is inside of you, guiding you in your decisions. Tune into the thoughts that excite your beating heart and follow their guidance. Observe how you feel around different people and use discernment to identify those that energize your soul. Consider your reactions to different situations and pursue a direction that excites your mind and creates a buzz in your cells. You have drawn this card to guide you to listen. Find a few moments in your day to sit in silence and pay attention to your inner voice. What is it telling you? Allow your feelings to come to the surface without judging them. Listen to the messages inside your soul and disregard the influence of other opinions. Everyone is on this earth for a different reason, and only you can listen, to the thoughts deep inside of you. When you take a few moments to be still, you will be able to hear the truth rather than your fears. Be open and ready to listen. The dancer sits with her trusted friend as he plays a beautiful piece of music on the banjo. As she listens to the melody, the music swirls around her and she hears the answers she's been seeking. So I absolutely love that. What a way to close off today's live stream. And even, why am I looking so dark all of a sudden? Okay, well, my light is probably dying and probably going to go out, but let me see. Hold on. Let me see if I can brighten this a little bit. Okay, well. Okay, well, that's better. Yes. Exactly, Jackson. I love that. That was amazing. I couldn't have said that better myself even if I tried. But exactly, that's exactly it. Like dun, 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 like you just hit the nail on the head right there. I love that. But yeah, exactly. So thank you guys so much for joining me today for this live stream, for engaging, in the chat and just adding your own essence and flavor to it too, because the feedback I got from you made I feel for me made this experience even better. So I want to thank you guys all so much for joining me today for this live stream, Thoughtful Thursday. And yes, thank you so much. And as I always say, I am love, so are you. As I see myself as human, I know you are too. So, with all that being said, please remember to take care of yourself and one another. And while you're at it, don't forget about me too. Please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you'll always be in the know when I post my next video or host my next live. And, don't forget that I also do have the pending giveaway when I hit 333 subscribers for the potential to win a copy of your very own Thoughtful Journey deck. And if you haven't seen the walkthrough or the interview that I did with this creator, be sure to check it out. Oh, there goes the light. Bye. So I hope that you enjoyed everything today that we've, discussed together, that I've been able to share with all of you. And I hope that you will join me again real soon. So until then, please always remember to check your privilege, mind your magic, and as always, live, listen, and learn. I love you all so much. Good luck to all of you on your healing journey, and of course, with the upcoming solar eclipse in Virgo, as we enter into Libra season, moving into the fall equinox. Bye, everybody. Thank you. Bye, Jackson. Bye, Marie. Thank you for joining today. Bye, everybody.